Welcome to the second Missing in Action preview. This time we will preview a backup program given the very appropriate name Backup. It was released by Perrian Limited, and to my surprise this title is Unlisted Missing in Action. I was sure I had heard of Perrian Limited before getting hold of this copy, but a search on spectrumcomputing.co.uk gave no results. Then I googled them on the net, which also gave no results. All I know is that they were based in Dewsbury, West Yorkshire, which is stated on the instruction paper that came along with the program. There will be 3 parts in this video, one where we will look at backup, then a follow-up part on the previous Missing in Action preview, and finally a potpourri of backup programs released for the ZX Spectrum. Don't forget to take a look at the fact file coming up after the first part and let me know in the comments if you have any extra information to be added about this program. See you all in part 1. Welcome to part 1, where we will load backup from Perrian Limited. And it's loaded as a code. According to the instructions, it will come up with a clear screen once it's loaded, and then it will be ready to make backups. That's it, I guess. Let's try and rewind and back up this program. I'll just test and not make a real copy. Now let's just pretend I put in a tape and started recording. That doesn't look like a saving. Place the tape to be copied into a cassette player and play tape into ZX Spectrum. Wait until the message Start Tape, then press any key appears at the bottom of the screen. This signifies that the tape has loaded correctly. The name and type of data will be printed on the screen. If this is not the program you require to copy, hold break key down until thin lines appear on border. I'll go get another program to test. Maybe it's protected against copying itself. Let's try with one of my favorite games. Once again we pretend that we have a tape in the recorder and started it to record. That's better. So it is protected against itself. Well, we just as well stop here, not much else to show. Remember, if you have any information about this program, like who is the author, or maybe you know of other programs released by Perrian Limited, anything is of interest, so please use the comments to let us know. Thanks for watching part 1. I hope to see you all in part 2, where we will follow up on what information was passed on to me about spools from the Mission in Action preview episode 1 video. See you. Gareth Pitchford posted this advert on Facebook that proves Mr. Bourne also released a Pools Forecasting 8 utility for the ZX81 in 1982 called Factfile, which can be entered into the preservation database as missing in action. Reading the advert, it seems that Factfile was just converted from the ZX81 to the ZX Spectrum and renamed to spools, as the features mentioned in the advert are exactly the same as those we find in spools. Thanks for sharing this with us all, Gareth. Maybe more stuff will be known for the follow-up part of the next Missing in Action preview. Fingers crossed. That's it for part 2. I hope to see you all in part 3, where we will look at some of the other backup programs for the ZX Spectrum from back then. See you. In this, the third part, we will look at some of the most famous and best-selling backup programs for the ZX Spectrum. But let's start with this one, which doesn't qualify for any of the mentioned criterias. But it's the backup program I have used the most throughout the years. There were 2 versions released, EasyCopy and EasyCopy 2. We will load the first version. The best known and probably the company selling the biggest numbers back then was LUM Software. Besides backup programs, they also released all sorts of utilities to compress files, create and read headers, and even a graphics and sound toolkit. Later they moved on to the SAM Coupe. Today the rights to all the LUM software belongs to Alchemist Research, who released an electronic Mac for the Spectrum called AlchMuse, running from 1991 until 2002. We will load tape copy of 4.2. Just like LUM Software, ZX Guaranteed released a lot of utilities to help you back up your games. ZX Guaranteed rose to real fame when they started selling an interface that could back up your tapes just by pushing a button. The famous interface 007. ZX Guaranteed and LUM Software have one thing in common, and that is that a lot of their programs released back then are still missing in action. Please check your collection if you have some of the titles listed as missing in action on spectrumcomputing.co.uk. If you do and need help preserving them, leave a comment and I will help you as good as I can. We will load 007 Spy. A company that rose to even bigger fame because they released a backup interface were Romantic Robot. The Multiphase 1 is probably the best known backup interface for the ZX Spectrum. They also sold the Multiphase 128 and the Multiphase Plus 3, which were to be used with the later 128K ZX Spectrum machines. However, before they started selling these interfaces, they also released some backup programs. We will load Trans Express. A much sold backup program was The Key, which were released in two versions, version 6 and 7. However, it seems a battle to make backups with The Key, as you had to load site A to make backups of files with a header, and then load site B to make backups of headerless files. seems too much trouble if you ask me. Keysoft released a few other utilities besides the key. We will be loading version 7, and unlike all other backup programs, it even got a loading screen. Finally, we have JP Clone, which was the first backup program I used. It was included on a random tape, and when I found out how to start it and realized what that code of just 256 bytes could be used for, I was over the moon. It wasn't until many years later I found out that it was a type-in program from the April 1984 issue of Your Computer. I also figured out that JP was the initials of the programmer. Well, let's load those 256 bytes.